Good evening and welcome to our broadcast. Tonight, we are discussing a very important and often emotional question. Should rich countries help poorer countries? This question challenges us to think about our responsibilities as a global community. To explore this topic, I'm joined by two guests with very different perspectives. First, we have Liam, an experienced aid worker who has spent years working on development projects around the world. Welcome, Liam. And second, we have Elena, an economist who studies international development and trade. Welcome to you, Elena. We will begin with opening statements from each of our guests, followed by a discussion, and we'll end with their closing thoughts. Liam, let's start with you.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe the answer to this question is a clear and simple yes. We absolutely have a moral duty to help. We are all part of one human family. When one part of that family is suffering from extreme poverty, hunger, or disease, it's our responsibility to act. But this isn't just about charity or feeling good about ourselves. It's a matter of justice. We must recognize that many wealthy countries have benefited from historical systems and economic rules that have often placed poorer countries at a disadvantage. So providing help is a way to correct this imbalance and create a fairer world for everyone. When we talk about help, we're talking about providing the basic necessities for a dignified life. This means ensuring people have access to clean, safe drinking water. It means funding schools so that children can receive a basic education and have a chance at a better future. It means supporting local health clinics that can provide life-saving vaccines and medical care. I once worked in a community where a small investment in modern irrigation systems completely changed their lives. It allowed them to grow enough food, not just to feed themselves, but to sell at the local market. This single project brought food security, economic stability, and, most importantly, it brought hope. Finally, helping poorer countries is also in the self-interest of richer nations. A more stable and prosperous world has less conflict and less migration driven by desperation. Healthy, educated populations are less likely to be the source of global pandemics that can affect us all. And as poor countries develop, they become new economic partners and new markets for our goods and services. Helping others is truly an investment in a better, safer future for the entire planet.
Thank you, Liam. Now, we turn to you, Elena, for your opening statement.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Liam, for sharing your perspective. Your passion for helping people is very clear. I want to be clear from the start. We all share the same goal. We all want to see an end to global poverty. However, I strongly question whether the traditional method of direct aid from rich countries to poor countries is the right way to achieve that goal. For more than 60 years, wealthy nations have sent trillions of dollars in aid. Yet many of the same problems continue to exist. We have to ask ourselves, why? The hard truth is that direct aid can cause serious unintended problems. First, it can fuel corruption. When large amounts of money are given to governments that have weak or dishonest systems, that money often doesn't reach the people who need it most. It can end up making corrupt leaders richer, not helping the poor. Second, it can create a dangerous cycle of dependency. A country can become so used to receiving aid that it stops trying to build its own strong, independent economy. This prevents local innovation and stops people from finding their own solutions to their own problems. Third, and perhaps most damaging, aid can destroy local economies. Let me give you an example. Imagine a country where many people are small-scale chicken farmers. Then, a rich country sends thousands of tons of frozen chicken as food aid. This seems like a generous act, but this free chicken floods the market, and the local farmers can't sell their own chickens. Their businesses fail, they lose their income, and the local economy is weaker than before. The aid has actually hurt the people it was meant to help. I believe there's a better way. Focus on trade, not aid. Instead of giving handouts, rich countries should become fair trading partners. They should remove the high taxes and unfair rules that make it difficult for poorer countries to sell their products, like coffee, fruit, or textiles. Let's help them build the roads, ports, and technology they need to compete in the global market. This approach gives people the dignity of earning their own way and building their own future. That's real, sustainable help.
Thank you, Elena. You raise a very strong point about aid being ineffective or even causing harm. Liam, as someone who has worked in the field, how do you respond to that? How can you be sure the help is actually working and not causing the problems Elena described?
That's a very fair and important question. Elena is right to point out these risks, because they are real. The history of foreign aid is not a story of perfect success, and we've learned many difficult lessons over the years. In the past, mistakes were definitely made. Aid was sometimes given for political reasons, not for development reasons. Big checks were written to governments, without enough supervision to see how the money was spent. But the world of international development has learned from these failures. Modern aid organizations are extremely aware of the dangers of corruption and dependency. That's why our focus has shifted. We now concentrate on what we call grassroots or community-led projects. This means we partner directly with local villages, community groups, and local experts. We don't just show up and tell people what they need. We listen. We ask them what their biggest challenges are, and we work with them to develop solutions. So for example, instead of just giving a government money to build a school, we might fund a program that trains local women to become certified teachers. This creates jobs and ensures the school has a connection to the community. Instead of shipping in food year after year, we provide farmers with drought-resistant seeds and training in sustainable farming techniques, so they can improve their own harvests. We measure our success very carefully. It's not about how much money we spend, it's about the results. Are more girls attending school? Has the rate of child mortality decreased? Is the local economy growing? The answer is not to stop helping because it's complicated. The answer is to help more intelligently, more collaboratively, and with more respect for the people we're trying to support.
Liam, I respect the intention behind these smaller projects. They are certainly an improvement on the old way of doing things, and they can make a real difference for the people in one specific village or town. But my concern is that this approach is like putting a small bandage on a very large wound. It treats the symptoms, but not the disease. A new well in one village is wonderful for the families there, but it doesn't fix the country's broken water infrastructure. It also doesn't change the unfair international trade rules that prevent the entire country from earning enough money to build new infrastructure for all its citizens. While you're helping one village at a time, the country as a whole may be losing billions in potential income. We need to fix the fundamental economic systems, not just focus on small, isolated success stories.
Let's pick up on that idea of the bigger system. Elena, your approach is focused on economics, trade, and institutions. Liam began his argument by talking about a moral duty to help those who are suffering right now. Does your economic approach ignore this fundamental human duty? Is it moral to tell a family that is hungry today that they need to wait years while we try to negotiate better trade agreements?
That's a powerful question, Sarah. I believe my approach is not only moral, but it's based on a deeper and more respectful form of morality. It's focused on empowerment and justice in the long term. Think about it this way. What's the most moral way to treat another person? Is it to constantly give them things? Creating a relationship where you're the powerful giver and they're the helpless receiver? Or is it to treat them as an equal partner, to give them the tools and opportunities they need to build their own success? I believe the second path is the more respectful and therefore the more moral one. Giving aid can sometimes be more about making the donor feel good about themselves. It provides a temporary fix that looks good in a photograph, but it might not lead to any real, lasting change. The most moral thing we can do is help countries create systems that allow them to stand on their own feet. Fair trade gives people the dignity of work. It allows a mother or father to say, I earned this money, I can feed my own family, I can build my own house. That sense of pride and independence, is an incredibly powerful and moral outcome. So my focus on trade and economics isn't about ignoring suffering. It's about creating a permanent solution so that future generations won't have to suffer in the same way. It's about breaking the cycle of poverty for good.
But Elena, you're presenting a false choice. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We can, and we absolutely must, do both at the same time. A child who is sick with a preventable disease like malaria cannot wait for a new trade agreement to be signed. That child needs medicine and a mosquito net right now. A family that has lost its home in an earthquake or a flood needs emergency shelter, clean water, and food today, not in 5 years when the economy has improved. We must respond to these urgent, life-threatening crises with direct, immediate help. That's our humanitarian duty. At the same time, we can work on the larger, long-term issues that you're talking about. We can and should pressure our governments to create fairer trade policies. We can invest in education and infrastructure. The two approaches are not enemies. They should be partners. It's like healthcare. You need an emergency room for urgent problems, and you also need long-term health and wellness plans to prevent problems from happening. One without the other is an incomplete solution.
This has been a very insightful discussion. We're now going to move to closing statements. Each of you will have a final opportunity to summarize your position for our audience. Liam, please begin.
Thank you. My argument today has been straightforward. As a global community, we have a clear moral responsibility to help our neighbors when they are in need. This isn't just an abstract idea. It's a practical path to building a safer and more prosperous world for every one of us. As we've discussed, this help must be smart and effective. It must be delivered in close partnership with local communities, focusing on empowering people to build their own better futures, not on creating dependency. We cannot and should not turn our backs on the immense suffering that still exists in our world. We have the resources, the technology, and the knowledge to make a huge, positive difference. A world where every person has the chance to live a dignified, healthy, and secure life is not an impossible dream. It's a choice we can make, and I believe it's a choice we must make together.
Thank you, Liam. And now, Elena, for your closing statement.
Thank you. My position isn't that we should stop caring about the problems of the world. It's that we must care enough to choose the methods that are truly effective and respectful. The traditional model of direct government-to-government aid, while often started with good intentions, is a flawed system. It can create dependency, increase corruption, and even harm local economies. The better path, the more sustainable and dignified path, is to focus on empowerment. We must demand fair trade policies from our leaders. We must help countries build their own strong, transparent institutions. Let's invest in their entrepreneurs, their infrastructure, and their people's skills. Let us help countries stand proudly on their own 2 feet. We shouldn't try to create a world of permanent givers and permanent receivers. That's the only way to achieve real, lasting progress for all.
Thank you both, Liam and Elena, for sharing your thoughtful and passionate arguments tonight. You've given us a great deal to think about. We've heard two powerful and not always opposing visions. One focused on our immediate moral duty to provide direct help in a crisis, and another focused on creating long-term structural change through partnership and trade. The final question is for all of us to consider. What combination of these ideas creates the best kind of help? Thank you for watching. Good night.